In 2009, James Cameron released a film that should not have existed. The technology was not ready, the budget was insane, studios thought it would be the biggest flop in the Hollywood history. Instead, it became the highest grossing movie of all the time. But Avatar's success was not luck. It was 15 years of obsession, secret technology, a made up language, and more complex than Klingon. And details so hidden that most fans have never noticed them. This is Avatar, and these are 22 secrets that prove Cameron did not just make a movie, he created an entire world. Number 1. Cameron wrote the script in 1994 and then locked it in a drawer for over a decade. Avatar was not delayed because of typical Hollywood problems, it was delayed because the technology needed to make it literally didn't exist yet. Cameron wrote the screenplay in 1994, fresh off the success of Terminator 2 and True Lies. He pitched it to studios, they loved the story, but when visual effects team analyzed what he wanted, they told him it was impossible. The performance capture technology required to make photorealistic alien characters that didn't exist. The rendering power needed to create Pandora's ecosystem would take years to develop. Cameron would have compromised, simplified his vision, used practical effects and makeup, but he refused. So he waited for 15 years while the rest of the Hollywood made movies. Cameron sat on a script he knew that would change the cinema. He waited for computers to get faster, for motion capture to advance, for the world to catch up to his imagination. When technology finally reached the point where Avatar was possible, Cameron did not hesitate. He had been preparing for over a decade, and he was ready to make history. Number 2. The star of the biggest movie ever made was basically homeless when he got cast. Sam Worthington was not a household name. He was not even a working actor anymore. He had given up on Hollywood after years of rejection and was living in his car in Los Angeles when he auditioned for Avatar. His last significant role had been years earlier in an Australian film that nobody had seen. Cameron saw nothing in Worthington that other directors missed. Raw intensity, authenticity, that was unique things in Sam Worthington. A hunger that came from real struggle. During his audition, Worthington displayed the exact combination of vulnerability and strength that Jake Sully required. But there's the twist. Cameron did not tell Worthington he was cast for months. He kept him waiting while testing other actors, unsure if this unknown Australian could carry a $237 million production. Meanwhile, Worthington kept living in his car, wondering if he had blown his last chance. When Cameron finally offered him the role, it changed Worthington's life overnight, from homeless to the lead in the highest grossing film ever made. Sometimes desperation creates the perfect performance, and it proved here. Number 3. Cameron hired a linguist to create a fully functional alien language before filming began. Most scientific films fake alien languages. Actors speak gibberish or reverse English. Cameron refused to accept that. He hired Dr. Paul Fromer, a USC linguistic professor, to create a complete working language for the Navy people. Not just random words, an entire linguistic system that grammar, syntax, and cultural context. Dr. Fromer spent months developing Navy phonetics, vocabulary, and structure. He created over 1,000 words initially, with rules for how new words could be formed. The language has its own grammar that differs word and fundamentally from English. It has cultural depth. Certain words only exist in specific contexts, reflecting Navy values and worldview. The actors were not just memorizing lines, they were learning an actual language. Zoe Saldana became so fluent she could improvise. She was improving his dialogue in Navy. The language is so advanced that fans have created entire dictionaries and can have conversations on it. Cameron's obsession with authenticity extended beyond visuals. He needed Pandora to feel real on every life, including how its inhabitants communicated. Number 4. A 60-year-old actress who had never smoked learned how far one character trailed. Sigourney Weaver's character, Dr. Grace Augustine, changed smokes throughout the film. It's a defining character that her rebellious nature expressed throughout constant cigarettes. Weaver had never been a smoker in real life, did not know how to hold a cigarette convincingly, did not know how to inhale properly without coughing, so Cameron arranged for her to take smoking lessons. Professional coaches taught her how to smoke like a lifelong addict. The angle of the cigarette, the casual flick of ash, the deep, tight inhale of someone who has been smoking for decades. Every gesture had to be authentic. Weaver spent weeks practicing, studying, and smokers learning the physicality. She did not actually smoke like real cigarettes during filming. They used herbal alternatives, but her technique was so convincing that audiences assumed she was a real smoker. This level of commitment to character detail is what separated Avatar from typical blockbusters. Every element, no matter how small, had to be real or at least feel real. And if you think that's obsessive, wait until you hear about the motion capture technology Cameron invented. Number 5. The cameras used to film Avatar did not exist until Cameron built them. Traditional motion capture technology in 2009 could not capture facial expressions in real time. Actors performed in empty rooms covered in sensors and their performances were mapped onto digital characters later. Cameron knew this would not work for Avatar. He needed to see Navy characters in real time, interacting with Pandora's environment while filming. So he invented a solution. Cameron and his team developed this simulcam system, a revolutionary camera that combined live action footage with CGI in real time. Directors could see actors as their Navy characters standing in Pandora's forest while actually filming them in a motion capture studio. This system required creating proprietary software, custom hardware, and entirely new filming workflows. It cost millions to develop. But it allowed Cameron to direct performances while seeing this finished product, not actors in grey suits covered with dots. And this was not just an incremental improvement, it was a paradigm shift in how visual effects film could be made. Other directors saw what Cameron had created and realized filmmaking would never be the same. Number 6. Pandora's impossible geography actually exists on Earth. The Hallelujahs Mountains, those massive floating rock formations that define Pandora's landscape, seem like pure fantasy. Mountains floating in the sky, connected by waterfalls and vines, completely impossible. Except Cameron based them on a real location. Zhangjiajie National Forest Park in China contains towering sandstone pillars that rise vertically from the ground like stone skyscrapers. These formations inspired the Hallelujahs Mountains design. Cameron and his team traveled to China, photographed the pillars, and used them as reference for Pandora's floating geography. The twist: after Avatar's success, Chinese officially renamed one of their mountain pillars Avatar's Hallelujah's Mountain to attract tourists. A real location inspired a fictional world, which then renamed the real location after the fiction. Reality and fantasy feeding into each other. Cameron's approach was always grounded in reality before adding the fantastic. Every element of Pandora, no matter how alien, had roots in actual Earth ecosystems, geology or biology. The world feels real because it's built on real foundations. Number 7. The villain's death was changed because the first version was too brutal. Colonel Miles Quaritch, played Stephen Lang, is Avatar's human antagonist. His death in 2 arrows through the chest, void by Neytiri, is violent but relatively quick. But Cameron's original script described something far more brutal. In early versions, Quaritch's death was prolonged, graphic, and disturbing. The original sequence showed Quaritch being systematically destroyed by Pandora's wife him after his mesh suit was damaged. Viper wolves tearing his armors, Thanators circling, a slow, agonizing death that emphasized that planet's revenge against its clonies. Test advanced audiences found it too disturbing even for a PG-13 film pushing boundaries. Cameron made the change reluctantly. He wanted Quaritch's death to be feel earned. The ultimate consequence of his respect for Pandora, but the original version crossed into territory that would have earned an R rating and limited the film's audience. The compromise was two arrows, quick, definitive, still satisfying, but missing the poetics just as Cameron originally envisioned. Sometimes even visionaries have to compromise. But the characters almost did not exist at all the time because of the Cameron's other obsession. Number 8. Cameron's favorite actor from Terminator and Alien was considered first. Before Stephen Lang terrorized Pandora as Colonel Quaritch, Cameron wanted Michael Biehn for the role. Biehn had played Kyle Reese in The Terminator and Corporal Hicks in The Aliens, two of the Cameron's most memorable tough guys heroes. For Avatar, Cameron wanted to cast him as the villain. Ben Reed for the part. Cameron seriously considered it, but ultimately the director decided Ben's screen presence was too heroic. Audiences loved him too much for previous Cameron films. Casting him as Quaritch might create sympathy for a character who needed to be purely antagonistic. Stephen Lang brought a different energy, harder, colder, more militaristic without the underlying humanity that were naturally projected. Lang's Quaritch is intimating from his first scene, never wavering in his commitment to the mission regardless of moral cost. Ben later expressed disappointment about not getting the role, but he understood the Cameron's reasoning. Sometimes the actor's previous success prevent them from taking new directions. The audience affection became a creative limitation. Number 9. Everyone mocked the mineral's name without realizing its legitimate science technology. Critics and audiences ridiculed unobtainium as lazy word building. A valuable mineral called unobtainium, it sounded like a joke, like Cameron could not be bothered to create a proper fictional element name. The mockery was immediate and widespread. Scientific fans were particularly harsh. But they were all wrong, and obtainium is an actual engineering term that's existed since 1950s. Engineers use it to describe any theoretical material with properties so ideal they are practically impossible to manufacture. Room temperature superconductors, perfectly rigid substances, material that exist in theory but not in practice. Cameron did not invent the term. He used real scientific jargon, and it was period appropriate for the film's 2154 setting. The name is intentionally ironic with the story. Humans traveled across the galaxy to obtain the literally unobtainable mineral. It's a deliberate commentary on colonial exploitation. The critics who mocked it revealed their own ignorance. Cameron had done his research. The name was scientifically accurate and thematically appropriate. But perceptions became reality, and unobtainium is still cited as evidence of weak world building by people who don't know its origin. Number 10. Avatar was not one film, it was always planned as five. While most directors of their films succeed enough to warrant a sequel, Cameron planned 5 Avatar films before the first one was released. That was not confidence, that's something beyond confidence. That's complete certainty in your vision regardless of market forces. During Avatar's production, Cameron and his team filmed the performance capture footage that would be the most used until sequels released over a decade later. Actors performed scenes for Avatar 2 and 3 during the original film's production. Some footage shot in 2007 and 2008 won't appear on screen until Avatar 5's release. The practical reason was simple: aging. If Cameron waited 10 years between films, his actors would age noticeably, but their Na'vi character would not. So he captured all the performances he might need and upfront, preserving his actors at specific ages for future use. This approach required unprecedented planning. Cameron needed to have significant portions of all the five scripted before shooting the first one. He needed to know character arcs, plot developments, and emotional beats years in advance. Most directors struggle to plan one sequel. Cameron planned four simultaneously. The gamble assumed Avatar would be successful enough to justify your sequels. If it had flopped, years of work and millions of the dollars would have been wasted. But Cameron knew somehow he knew. Number 11. The bounding scene was cut from something far more explicit. Jack and Natalie's connection scene, where they bond together through their neural cues under the trees of voices, is tastefully handled in the final film. Implied intimacy without explicit content. Beautiful, emotional, appropriate for a PG-13 rating. Cameron's original cut was significantly longer and more explicit, not sexually graphic but far more detailed in showing the physical and spiritual connection between Navy partners. This scene explored the unique aspects of Navy bonding, showing how their neural connections created experiences impossible for humans. Test audiences responded positively to the emotional content but felt uncomfortable with the extended sequence. The scene became distracting, pulling viewers out of the story's momentum. It felt too intimate, like watching something private that should not be shared. Cameron recognized the problem and cut the scene down to its essential emotional beats. The connection is established, the intimacy implied, but viewers are not forced to watch every detail. It's one of the few times Cameron shows restraint over explicit word building. The deleted footage was never had been released. Cameron felt it served no purpose outside the film's original cut. Some details are better left to imagination. But if that surprised you, wait until you hear about the alternate ending. Number 12. The theatrical ending was not Cameron's first choice. Avatar's theatrical ending shows Jack permanently transferring his consciousness into his Navy's Avatar body, completing his transformation. It's poetical, hopeful, a literal rebirth that reinforces the film's environmental and spiritual themes. Perfect closure. But Cameron filmed an alternate ending that's darker and more ambitious. In the version, Jack's consciousness transfer is less certain. His human body dies, but whether his consciousness successfully transferred remains unclear. The film ends with Neytiri holding Jack's Navy body, his eyes still closing, waiting to see if he will wake up in his new version. Test audience hated it. They have never invested 3 hours in Jack's turning and wanted definitive closure. The ambiguous ending felt like a betrayal. Cameron had earned the right to a happy ending and audience wanted to see it delivered clearly. Cameron agreed sometimes the darker choice is not the better choice. He went with the ending that provided emotional satisfaction while still maintaining thematic integrity. Jack completes his transformation. He became fully Navy. The journal has a clear destination. The alternate ending appears on special edition Blu-rays but never gained traction. Most fans prefer the theatrical version. Sometimes test audiences are right. Number 13. Trudy's heroic death was not part of the original plan. Trudy Chacon, the badass pilot, played the Michael Rodriguez sacrifices herself during the final battle defending the Navy against Quadrit's forces. It's a heroic death that cements her as a true ally. But in Cameron's original screenplay, Trudy survived the battle. Cameron changed it during production for narrative reasons. The final battle needed real stakes, consequences that matter. If all the sympathetic human characters survived, the victory would feel too clean. War has cost. Cameron needed audience to feel those costs viscerally. Rodriguez understood that was disappointment. She had never developed the character with the expectation of appearing in sequels. Trudy's survival would have given Cameron interesting storytelling option for future films. A human fully integrated into Navy's society, bridging two workers and two worlds. But Cameron's made the calculation that Trudy's death served the first film's narrative more effectively than her survival would serve future installments. Sometimes characters have to die for the story to resonate. Rodriguez gave him a death scene so heroic it became one of the most memorable film's moments. Number 14. Those braided neural cues are not just fantasy, they are based on actual neuroscience. The Navy ability to form neural connection with animals and plants through their braided cues seems like pure scientific invention. But Cameron based the concept on real biological systems, mycorrhizal networks, underground fungal connections between trees allows for us to share resources and information. Scientists call these networks the wood wide web. Trees communicate through chemical signals transmitted via fungal connections. They share nutrients with struggling neighbors. They warn each other about insect attacks. It's a biological internet that's existed for millions of years. Cameron exploited this concept to create Pandora's ecosystem. If plants can network through fungal connection, what if an alien species evolved direct neural interfaces? The Navy's cues are biological USB cables, evolutionary adaptation for a planet where everything is literally connected. Eva, the planetary consciousness, is Cameron's take and Gaia's hypothesis. The idea that Earth itself functions as a single living organism, Pandora literalizes this concept through neurological connections. The planet is not metaphorically alive, it's actually sentient with the Navy as its nervous system. The scientific foundation makes Pandora feel plausible despite being completely fictional. Cameron's words work because they follow logical rules based on the real sciences. Number 15. Jake Sully almost sounded completely different. During early ages, Sam Worthington performed Jake Sully with his natural Australian accent. Cameron initially spotted his choice, thinking it wouldn't differentiate Jack from typical American military characters and emphasize his outsider status. But test footage revealed a problem. Audiences found the accent distracting. It pulled them out of the story, making them think about Worthington, the Australian actor, instead of Jack, the character. The disconnect was subtle but persistent. In test screenings, viewers consistently mentioned the accent as something that bothered them. Cameron made the call Worthington would use an American accent for an Australian actor. This meant completely changing his vocal patterns, rhythm, and inflection. He worked with dialect coaches for months, erasing his natural speech patterns to create Jack's voice. The change required reshooting significant footage that had already been captured, expensive, time-consuming but necessary. But Cameron knew that if audiences were thinking about accents, they were not thinking about the story. Even every distraction had to be eliminated. Worthington's American accent is now so associated with Jack Sully's that fans forget his Australian. The performance erased the performers completely. That's when acting truly works. Number 16. Cameron filled a waiter with the hidden callbacks to his previous films. James Cameron loves planting Easter eggs for observant fans. Avatar contains at least 13 direct references to his 1986 film Aliens, creating an unofficial connection between the space-based universe. These are not accidentals, they are deliberate winks to his filmography. Quadrich's battle mesh sword echoes the power loader replay used to fight the alien queen. The corporate grid driving RDA's Pandora's exploitation mirrors Wayland Yutanis Xenomorph's exploitation. Sigourney's Weaver appears in both films as strong woman standing against corporate evil. The military jargon is nearly identical, even small details connect the dropship designs. The cryo-sleep pods, the way Marines talk about missions. Cameron was creating consistent visual and narrative language across his scene fiction films. Their fans would have watched aliens recognize familiar elements, creating subconscious comfort with Avatar's world. The most direct reference, the name Pandora itself, appeared in the Aliens extended cut. Mentioned as a planet in a deleted scene, Cameron retroactively connected his films to a single planetary reference that most viewers never caught. These Easter eggs reward long-time Cameron fans while remaining invisible to newcomers. It's the kind of layered details obsessive directors life are. But Cameron's obsession went beyond just callbacks to his own work. Number 17. Nothing in this alien world exists without a reason. Most scientific films create alien environments that look cool but don't function as actual ecosystem. Cameron refused to work that way. Every plant, animal, and organism in Pandora's environment serves as a specific ecological purpose. The world function as an ecosystem with predators, prey, symbiotic relationship, and energy flow. Cameron hired botanists and zoologists as consultants. They analyzed Pandora's flora and fauna, ensuring nothing violated basic biological principles. If a plant existed, it needed a pollination strategy. If an animal existed, it needs a food source. Everything connected. The bioluminescent plants are not just pretty, they are a part of Pandora's neural work. Reacting to chemical signals from their organisms, the helicorydians, those spiral plants that retract when touched, evolved as a defense mechanism against herbivores. The wood sprites, those floating jellyfish-like seeds, are Ava's way of gathering and transmitting information across the planet. This level of ecological design is invisible to most viewers. They see a beautiful alien world without realizing it's a functional ecosystem that could theoretically exist. That's Cameron's genius. The details you don't consciously notice create the unconscious feeling that this world is real. Number 18. Neytiri's incredible physicality came from an actress who refused stunt doubles. Zoe Saldana trained for months to perform Neytiri's acrobatic movements herself. She studied archery, martial arts, and parkour to achieve the fluid animalistic grace that defines her character. Most of the Neytiri's action sequence featured Saldana actual performance, not stunt doubles. The training was brutal. Saldana worked with Navy SEAL trainers to develop warrior physicality. She learned traditional archery techniques that required tremendous upper body strength. She practiced moving in the ways that felt aliens. How would a species that evolved in Pandora's lower gravity more differently from humans? During motion capture sessions, Saldana performed while wearing a tail that affected her balance and movement. She had to learn compensate for the added weight and length. Incorporating it into her physical performance, the tail was not added in post-production. It was physically present, forcing her to adopt her environment. Her commitment paid off. Neytiri's movies, unlike any other CGI character in the film, the performance feels genuinely alien but emotionally authentic. That's because underneath the blue skin and motion capture technology, it's a real actors performing real movements with real skill. Number 19. Cameron wrote a screenplay that should have been 4 hours long. The average screenplay is 90 to 120 pages, with each page roughly equal to 1 minute of screen time. Avatar's theatrical runtime is 162 minutes. Cameron's original screenplay was over 350 pages. The math does not work unless you are playing a massively longer film. Cameron wrote extensive world-building details into the script that would never appear on the screen. Character black stories, cultural explanations, ecological descriptions, political dynamics between Navy clans. He wrote a novel disguised as a screenplay, knowing most of it would be cut. But those unnecessary details served a purpose. They gave actors context for their performance. They helped designers understand the world they were building. They ensured every department was working from the comprehensive version of Pandora. The cuts were painful. Hours of the character development, subplots, and world building ended up into cutting room floor. Cameron released an extended cut that restored some material, but hundreds of the pages remain unseen. The script exists as a blueprint for a larger universe Cameron plans to explore across 5 films. But viewers what see is the surface. The script contains depth that would not be revealed for years. Number 20. The director bet his own money on Avatar's success. Avatar's budget ballooned to $237 million during production, and 20th Century Fox executives were panicking. They had already invested more than any scientific film in the history, and Cameron kept demanding more. More time, more technology, more resources, more money. Fox threatened to shut down production unless Cameron agreed to compromises. Cameron refused. He believed absolutely in his vision but would not accept shortcuts that would compromise the final product. But he needed leverage to force the studio to continue funding. So he made a deal. Cameron would defer his entire fictional fee, millions of dollars, until after the film's release. He had only get paid if Avatar succeeded. If it flopped, he would walk away with nothing after years of work. The gamble was insane. He was betting his entire compensation on a film industry experts predicted would be a disaster. But Cameron knew. He had seen enough test footage to understand what he had created. He knew audience would respond. His certainty was absolute. Avatar earned $2.9 million worldwide. Cameron's second deal made him one of the highest paid directors in history. He bet everything and he won. But the real gamble was what money next. Number 21. Avatar's environmental message was not just marketing. Cameron put his money where his mouth is. After Avatar's success, Cameron became a vocal environment activist, but unlike most celebrities who just talk, he took direct action. He purchased hundreds of the acres of actual rainforest in Brazil and elsewhere, protecting them from logging and development. Cameron used Avatar's profit to fund conservation organization. He became a major donor to indigenous rights movement. He purchased farming land in New Zealand and converted it into a sustainable practices. He invested in clean energy companies and carbon capture technology. Critics accused him of hypocrisy, making hundreds of the millions from a movie while preaching environmentalism. Cameron's response was action. He proved his commitment by spending his Avatar fortune on the causes the film promoted. The movie was not just entertainment, it was a manifesto Cameron lived by. He also established educational programs teaching filmmaking techniques to indigenous communities, giving them tools to tell their own stories. Avatar's message about respecting indigenous culture and protecting nature became Cameron's personal mission. The film changed more than cinema, it was changed what one filmmaker did with his influence and wealth. Number 22. The film permanently changed how movies are released and viewed. Before Avatar, 3D was considered as the gimmick. A few horror films and kids movies used it, but serious filmmakers avoided it. Audiences associated 3D with cheap thrills and uncomfortable glasses. It was a novelty, not a legitimate artistic tool. Cameron changed everything. He used 3D not for cheap jump scares, but to create depth and immersion. Pandora's forest felt like spaces you could walk into. The floating mountains had genius dimensionally. The technology enhanced storytelling instead of distracting from it. Avatar's success convinced the studios that 3D could be profitable. Within 2 years, nearly every major blockbuster was released in 3D. Theater chains upgraded to 3D projectors. Tickets prices increased to reflect the premium experience. The entire industry infrastructure changed because of one film's success. But the technology was not just the beginning. Avatar proved the audience would embrace fully CGI characters in lead roles if the performances were genuine. It proved that original scientific properties could compete with franchises and sequels. It proved that environmental and political message could coexist with blockbuster entertainment. Cameron did not just make a successful film, he redefined what blockbusters could be. And he's not just finished yet, and 4 more Avatar films are coming. each promising to push boundaries farther than the last. The question is not whether Cameron will succeed, it's how far he will go this time. It started as an impossible dream locked in a drawer for 15 years. It became the highest grossing film of all the time and changed cinema forever. James Cameron did not just make Avatar, he waited for the world to catch up to his vision, and when it finally did, he showed us what movies could be. Hidden languages, secret ecosystem, technology invented just to film it, an environmental message backed by real action, and a director who bet everything on a film everyone said would fail. Avida was not just ahead of its time, it created its own time, and with four more filming coming, the revolution is not over, it's just beginning. If you are obsessed with the hidden secrets and insane stories behind cinema's biggest achievements, smash that subscribe button and drop a comment and tell us what legendary films we should explore next. Because the deeper you look, the more incredible stories became. Thank you.